In today's video, I'm going to be reviewing the Forestmaster Heavy Duty FM10 7-ton electric log splitter. I'll be talking about what I like about it, what I don't like about it, showing you the different features it has, and generally talking about and showing you what it can actually do. Now, I have a log burning stove and I have access to a lot of logs, so I wanted a log splitter that was still affordable but still capable of splitting large amounts of logs on the weekends, and this model seemed to tick all the boxes. Maybe more importantly, I wanted a log splitter I could split large logs with and not just the smaller ones some of the other models I had considered could do. So after using it for a while, I thought it was time to do a video review on it, so here we are. So the model I purchased was the Forestmaster FM10T-7 ton electric log splitter, but I also purchased the optional stand, the heavy duty workbench and the guard. As you probably already noticed, I have not attached the guard, but I'll talk about this a little later on in the video. If you're interested in seeing what model I purchased, I will leave a link below. Also, don't forget to like the video if you find it useful, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel to see more reviews just like this. Now back to the review. So when it first arrived, I had a lot of logs at home, so I decided to use a log splitter without the stand at home. Overall, it was great, I had no issues splitting logs, but working at ground level was not the most ideal working position, and I put quite a lot of strain on my back bending over all the time. I really can see how some people would struggle to use this without a stand. That being said, you could probably put it on some kind of workbench or table. I wanted to take it to the garden centre to use there, so I decided it was much easier to transport it in the car without the stand attached, and then attach the stand later on when I would be using it more permanently. First of all, let me give you the specs of this beast. It has a bone crushing 7 tons of splitting force. It's fitted with what Forestmaster call their Duocut blade, which means it actually splits logs from both ends. Now this is different in that most log splitters have a flat ram at one end and a blade at the other end, so it only splits from one end. This log splitter actually can split the logs from both ends. What it seems to do really well is split logs with lots of knots in, because even if it stops at a knot when it's splitting at one end, it will carry on splitting at the other end of the log thanks to the Duocut blade. In terms of the length of the log you can split with this machine, it can split logs up to 43 cm, which is around 17 inches, and up to an impressive 40 cm wide, which again is around 16 inches. I did try and split larger logs with this and never really struggled as well. Finally, being electric, which is what I wanted as opposed to petrol where there's quite a bit more maintenance, this model is powered by a 2200 watt motor which powers the hydraulic ram. It's worth noting it also came with hydraulic oil, which was already filled in the machine when it arrived, which is a bonus as it just meant that it was literally ready to use out of the box. Plug it in, it was ready to use straight away. Now, building the stand and fitting it was easy enough. You remove the wheels from the log splitter itself, you attach them to the stand, which is in a separate box. Most of the stand simply slots together into place, and you use a few nuts and bolts to keep everything secure, and when you're done, realistically, it probably took me around 15 minutes to put together. But if you have it on a table, like I did in this video, it does make it much easier to build the stand and actually put the log splitter onto the stand. I really do feel like the stand alone is a worthy investment, even if you don't order the workbench, as it's much easier working at waist height than at ground level. It makes it super easy to move around, moving in and out of a garage or shed for example. For me, I have to move it quite a distance, so having wheels makes it so much easier. It's also heavy at around 60 to 70 kilos, and trust me when I say that it's not something you'll be wanting to actually physically pick up and carry for any length of distance. It's just too heavy to be doing that sort of thing with. As mentioned, I also have the workbench, which I didn't think I would actually need, but what a difference this workbench actually makes. If I was to buy a log splitter again, I would certainly be making sure that it did include a workbench. It really is worth the extra. I actually paid for it. What I really like about the workbench is that the logs don't fall onto the floor as easy. And where I really felt it made a big difference and sped things up was that I could load several logs onto the workbench and split them much easier as they're all at hand, instead of having to bend down and pick them up the floor, put them on the log splitter, split the log, and then get another one off the floor, put that on the log splitter, and take it off. I could put a load of small logs onto the workbench and then split them straight away, one in, one out, one in, one out. It is really useful, especially when it comes to splitting quite a large amount of smaller logs. Now the workbench does come with a guard, but I actually didn't fit it. However, I don't recommend doing this, and if you do, like I did, then you're doing this at your own risk. The reason I didn't fit it is because I felt it would make it a little more awkward to use and would only accommodate logs up to 40mm as it's encaged. Obviously, I do this at my own risk, so if you also was not to use the cage, you would be using it at your own risk too. Now it takes around 15 seconds to do a full cycle, which is the only real downside. I find this is not really as long as it sounds when you're actually using it, and that's because of the simple but effective feature, the RAM stop. This basically allows you to start the RAM at whatever distance you want. This means that when I have lots of small logs to split, I can set the RAM up halfway up, and it only has to do half the run each time I'm splitting a log. This feature alone saves so much time, and I do use it often, especially on the smaller logs. So what you're probably wondering is, what is this actually like to use? Well, I really like it, and so good so far. I've had no issues whatsoever. It's fairly quick once you get your own little system in place and logs lined up, ready to split. I have put it through its paces with both pine and hardwood logs, and some fairly large logs too, and it really hasn't struggled. The only time I had a little bit of hesitation is when I was splitting some logs that were really large, and they'd been outside and they were sort of really wet, and when the wedge went in, the wedge actually got jammed in it, so it stopped working. But that's only happened a couple of times with very large logs that were very wet. In general, all the logs have done no issues whatsoever, straight through them with that 7 tons of splitting force. Now, there is one small downside, but this is actually another safety feature to comply with EU regulations, I assume. To actually use a log splitter, you have to use 2 hands at the same time. Now, this is for safety reasons, and it's not a big deal. You have to pull down on the lever at the back of the machine and then press the button located next to the motor with the other hand. The idea is that you can't have your hands anywhere near the RAM when it's moving, as both hands have to be on the machine to be using it. It's easy enough, but I think I'm going to try and fit a foot pedal instead of using the button. But again, this will be at my own risk, and I don't recommend doing this, but it will free up one hand when I'm using the log splitter. I've seen a couple of people on YouTube videos who have actually done this successfully, fitted a foot pedal and wired it in where the button is instead of using the button. And it looks like a good idea, but again, it's putting more risk on safety, so it's not something I recommend, but I will say it is something I'm going to look into doing. Overall, I think this machine is very well made. It seems to have more than enough power to split anything I seem to put into it. The only thing I do question is the quality of the plastic wheels. They just seem a little cheap, but I've not had any issues with them yet. But the ground that I move with the log splitter over can be a little bit bumpy. It feels a bit rigidy. It feels a bit like the wheels could come off. Although as of yet, nothing has happened. But I just get the feeling that the wheels could be a little bit better quality, but perhaps made of rubber instead of made of plastic. I will leave this review by saying that overall, I'm really pleased with this log splitter. I would recommend to anyone looking for a decent log splitter for more heavy-duty domestic tasks, so not professional use. But if you're looking at a log splitter you can use a lot, then I do recommend this log splitter. Up to now, I've been using it. It's been absolutely fine. It's great. I actually enjoy getting it out and going splitting a load of logs on the weekend. Now, some of you are probably going to say, I could split them faster with an axe. And you're probably right, but using a log splitter for some people is much easier than using a maul. Not to mention it's safer, much less tiring, and much more fun to use. Plus, it can split some of the larger logs that an axe might struggle with. Now, I will show some clips of this log splitter in use with different sized logs as well as I come to the end of the video. Anyway, if you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to give this video a like, as it really does help me out. Also, subscribe to the channel to get notifications when I post new reviews just like this. And don't forget to comment below if you have any questions. I promise I will end this video with some footage of this log splitter in action. And thanks for watching.